has something to share in either wisdom, story, or logic, and it's clearly amazing to hear all the differing missing links discovered by people unique to their own journeys, and in how they have come to discover them. Together, we can help to build a bigger picture for a better future, for a brighter tomorrow. Let's stand united. Let's remove the veils and let's create a new world together. Are you that missing link? Join Jesse Hale on the Missing Link Talk Show as he helps to unveil the mystery through the unique wisdom and story of others.
Welcome everybody here back to the Missing Link. Today we're excited to have back, I think maybe the 5th or 6th time, someone who is a Polish Canadian Protestant street preacher. He is a pastor of the Cave of Adullam congregation in Calgary and previously led the Kings of Glory Fellowship. He's also the founder and pastor of the Street Church Ministries, where he engages in open air preaching and Christian street outreach. Many of us know him from the early on in the pandemic when he said, "Get out, you Gestapos," out of, his church that were trying to come on his rights, his religious freedoms here in Canada. And he's author of the book, Lions Do Not Bow. Welcome to the Missing Link Live, Pastor Artur Pawlowski. How are you doing today, brother?
Thank you so much, Jesse, for having me back. Wow, since last we talked, lots of things happened, and so I'm glad to share some of the insights that are happening right now in our beloved Canada.
Awesome. Well, why don't you start off with telling us about yourself, your journey, a little bit about your background, your education, what part of the world you grew up in, what part of the world you're in now, if you like disclosing that information. Anything about yourself, your journey, what got you into, preaching, what got you into politics, writing books, what, repercussions of the stuff that happened about you being jailed by, your religious beliefs and freedoms. Anything about yourself and your journey that you want to share with our audience here today, especially if they're hearing you now here for the first time?
Yeah, first of all, as you can tell, I grew up behind the Iron Curtain under the boots of the Soviets in the 70s and 80s. So, right now, I really understand why the modern day pharaohs, if you will, are so afraid of a little Polish guy, with a funny accent speaking the truth. Because not only I grew up in a very peculiar country, Poland, that, as you know from history, was attacked in 1939 by the Nazis, but also I grew up under communism and socialism behind the Iron Curtain under the boots of the Soviets. So I saw the tyranny, the police state, the abuse of power, the lack of accountability, but I also saw the remedy. I also witnessed with my own eyes, with my wife, the movement called Solidarity movement that ultimately took down the Soviet Empire, broke the Iron Curtain, and destroyed the Berlin Wall. So, how did they do it? And why the Canadian government, or I should say the globalist government, because right now Canada is not a sovereign nation. Canada has been taken over by globalists. As you know, the parliament is prorogued. That means no one is representing us at this moment. They are doing whatever they want. They're spending our money. They're taxing us to death. As you know, Canadians are paying over 50% in taxes. It's chaos. It's craziness. It's propaganda at the highest levels that I have ever seen. And that tells you a lot because I grew up under the boot of propaganda. So why they're so scared? Because when the people come together, and that's the message that I have been giving Canadians for a very long time, there is really no power that can stop the people. We, the people, have the power. And as you remember, I was ultimately charged with terrorism for my involvement with the truck convoy, for my 19 minutes, a little speech, a sermon. We did Lord's Supper. We were singing hymns. I prayed for the people, and I gave them a little bit of a motivational history lesson a speech, a mini sermon to a hurting Canadians. What did I say that scared them so much? Well, I reminded them about the solidarity movement. I told them I've seen this before, and they do not have enough police to stop millions of Canadians if Canadians finally will say enough is enough. And that's what the Polish people did. Also, what I said to the hurting Canadians at the time, the truckers, the farmers, I said, with God, we cannot lose. Polish people did it the right way. They took it to the streets. They paralyzed their system by simply refusal to cooperate. It was a general strike. When the millions of people said enough is enough, it was over. The whole thing collapsed, and Poland not only freed itself, it freed the entire Europe. So how did they do it? Well, I remember clearly when I was growing up, those hundreds of thousands of people on the streets. And what they did, they were dragging that huge cross with them, and they would go to their knees. So imagine this situation. You've got thousands upon thousands of people, and them going to their knees in front of tanks, machine guns, soldiers, and of course the guns aimed at them. And they would start chanting, "We want God, we want God, we want God." And I think that God heard their prayers and he showed up. And as you know, 1989, a few years later, Europe was liberated. So that's what I was sharing through this whole attack on our bodily autonomy, on our God and state given rights. Of course, what they did was illegal. I quite often during that time I was criticized for not bowing, for not closing the doors of the church, for not stopping feeding the poor. But I said, well, listen, in a time of crisis, people need the church more than ever. Historically speaking, church was always the answer. Church was always the one that fed the poor and took care of the sick. And in a time of this crisis, I was I had no choice really as a believer, as a Christian, but to keep feeding the poor. I remember, as you know, I became the first Canadian to get the crazy ticket of the pharaohs, the modern day pharaohs. And I replied to them and I said, listen, when they told me to stop feeding the poor, I said, you don't make any sense, because if what you're saying is true, if we're truly in the middle of this great disaster, as you are saying, then my services are needed now more than ever. If you're going to shut down soup kitchens and shelters, what do you think is going to happen to 15 to 20,000 different individuals facing homelessness on the streets of Calgary and other cities? I mean, they will turn to violence. They will break into homes. They will break into grocery stores. They will break into garages and cars. I mean, you people do not make any sense. By throwing them out and stopping those people from receiving necessities of life, you are creating a disaster. But of course, as you know, no one replied to me. I sent a letter to the premier. I sent it to his ministers. No one cared to even reply. At that moment, I knew this whole thing is a big fat lie. This was a propaganda of the new, I guess, a hybrid, as I call it, communist socialism and fascism combined together. And the next thing, I had police officers, about a dozen of them, trying to shut us down. I was threatened with arrest, and ultimately, I mean, the story is huge. That's why, that's why I wrote that book, Lions Do Not Bow, because when I do shows and people ask me, for example, can you tell us about your arrest? Well, which one? I was arrested so many times. My lawyers don't even remember how many times. Well, tell us about this trial. Which one? I faced over 120 court cases. Well, tell us about the ticket. Like, which one? I received over 360 citations. I mean, I've never met a man in my entire life that had more tickets than Artur Pawlowski. I mean, this is insanity at the highest levels. And you got to remember, all of the citations, all of the courts, all of the arrests, including the charge of terrorism, mischief, interfering with the crucial infrastructure under the Defense Act, which is absolutely a ridiculous charge. All of that is tied to me doing my job, feeding the poor, taking care of the most vulnerable in our society. and keeping the church's doors open. I mean, it's a total insanity by a very sinister crime organization, which is the Canadian government, in quote, right now. So, going back to the story, I escaped communism. We escaped on a boat because we were sick and tired of corruption. That's it. We escaped Poland because we were sick and tired of the level of corruption that for the Canadian and American people, it's hard to understand even. Everything was run by bribery, and we just wanted to live our lives in peace. So we escaped to Greece. Greece was beautiful, was amazing, great people. We did very well in Greece. My father had his own company. I had my own company. My mom was in the private sector as well. We did as a family very well. However, it was capitalism, but also it was a very corrupted society. So when we met, we had options to go to US, we had options to go to Australia. And my father was is engineer, so we were invited to South Africa, and we would be given a house and swimming pool and servants and a lot of money. But we really wanted to go to a country where you can work hard without corruption, a free country. So when we've met with the agent in Canadian embassy in Athens, and he told us come to Canada because Canada is the freest country on earth, and in Canada no one will ever persecute you for your faith. Well, the answer was very obvious to us. We've decided to move, sell everything we had, and move to Canada. And we arrived here in 1995. And what a shocker! What a shocker when I started to take care of the homeless people. And again, Jesse, I was very naive, and I think most of your listeners, and I don't want the people to take this in the wrong way, you have no idea really what is happening with your tax money, and if it comes to, in quote, fighting homelessness. I didn't. Unless you're in the middle of it, you have no idea what's really going on. And I really thought, I was so naive, Jesse, I thought that the Canadian government means well, that the shelters are actually helping people, and the billions of dollars that are being designated to fight homelessness, it's actually reaching the poor. But what a naive person I was. It turned out this is a fat cow milking, and it's being milked all the time by the politicians, by the CEOs of all those criminal organizations, those shelters. I was receiving stories when I went to the streets, feeding the poor and taking care of them. In the first year, we took over 600 people off the streets. And I thought that the government is going to be happy. The mainstream media at that time were writing a good stories about us. You know, we're the heroes and this and this. And when the politicians got involved, I was like, I was punched in the nose. I didn't understand why they hate us so much. I didn't understand why they want this to stop. We were so successful. 250 volunteers, 7 locations, taking people off the streets. Like I said, within 3 months, over 600 homeless people helped to get out of the streets. Why government is getting involved in trying to destroy us? That was the first tickets we received. And Jesse, we received tickets. And it will be hard for people to understand. We received tickets for giving free goods and services without a permit. Can you believe it? If you give a sandwich to a dying child on the streets in our municipalities, you're actually breaking the law. I was shocked because I've read the Constitution. I studied law for 3 years, and I read the Constitution. And in our highest law, we are given, I thought, rights that no one can really touch. I mean, one of those rights is providing necessities of life. But I was mistaken because the municipal governments at that time was Dave Branconia, that crooked, evil, wicked man, sent bylaw officers and police officers. And ultimately, I was arrested multiple times for just feeding the poor. I was arrested for congregating. I was arrested for having a sign that was offensive. Listen to this. I got $10,000 multiple times tickets for an offensive signage. You know what the sign said? Jesus loves you. So I end up in court, in and out. I call this 10 years war with the city of Calgary, and surprised, in a court of appeal I won, and they pretty much left me be. I received tickets for stunting. They said that when we are feeding the people, it's a distraction to motor vehicles. I was criminally charged. I received tickets for distribution of printed material, which is gospel tracts and Bibles. My church was raided by the police and the Bible services. My Bibles were confiscated, and printed material, gospel tracts were confiscated, signs confiscated, never given back by the Calgary police and the Bible services. So I went through this hell back and forth, and I'm very grateful. And I don't want you to take this in the wrong way, that I was able to go through this, because this fight, if you will, it was a preparation for me to stand for what was about to come in 2020. They left us be for for a while, until, like I said, beginning of 2020 showed up, and the craziness started globally. And I became the first Canadian to get that crazy ticket. I was threatened with arrests. This whole thing was blown up out of proportion. The chief of police did the press conference. I was called by the mainstream media later on a grandpa killer, grandma destroyer, wicked evil. I was compared to Adolf Hitler for feeding the poor. I was compared to Stalin for keeping the church's doors open. A ridiculous things started to happen. They lit my house on fire, literally in the middle of the night. And by the way, all of those things are in a book, Lions Do Not Bow. And we'll go back to why I wrote the book and when I did it. But they lit our house on fire in the middle of the night, and if it was not for our neighbor that caught it right away when they lit it on fire, we would be burned to death. The chief firefighter came and told me that they had a very similar situation a week before, and the whole thing burned down within 5 minutes. I mean, that's how bad it was. Thank God, God spared our lives, and our children were sleeping in our house, and we were spared. Then they lit our church on fire. Our church was vandalized for months. For months, they burned down our children's bus to the ground. They broke into our church multiple times. They stole our equipment, cameras, speakers, and this was my life all the time. I was threatened all the time. We had Antifa in our backyard. I received messages by Antifa I will be assassinated. I was punched, physically attacked, bird spray. All kinds of weird things started to happen. They unscrewed tire in our pickup truck. And if it was not for our mechanic, because my wife drives a truck dropping children at school, she would die in the middle of the highway. The mechanic said that the tire just took off on its own. And if this happened on a highway, someone would be really hurt, or someone would die. So those were things that were happening. In the meantime, as you remember, the narrative was very similar to what I remember growing up. Lie after lie, manipulation, misinformation, disinformation, coming from all levels of government, federal, and all, unfortunately, all parties are guilty of literally murder right now, because, as you know, many people died because of what they said. Conservative Party did not come to our defense. They didn't stand with the people. They abandoned us. They threw us under the bus. The Liberals and NDP formed a coalition and kept murdering citizens. And during this time, they unleashed. I'm not going to be saying the names, because I don't want you to, the algorithm will probably be triggered. But the job, they unleashed this, and to this day, as a pastor, I'm dealing with people dying, really being hurt by what was done to them. And so that was going on for 2020. I think the culmination of 2020 was Christmas festival. I don't know if you remember that. Canadian government, all levels, canceled Christmas. We were not allowed to sing. Remember that? Singing was prohibited by law. I mean, even when I share this, it sounds insane. And we lived through this, but it sounds so crazy. But they outlawed singing. They outlawed Lord's Supper, gathering, of course. And people like me, Jesse, people need to understand that we grew up in hell. And when this was unleashed on us, right away we were able to pick it up that this is sinister, this is evil, this doesn't make any sense. It's a repetition of history. So people like me stood tall because we understand the consequences if you allow this totalitarian regime to flourish. It will be over. You will have no future and your children will have no country. And trust me, Poland was the freest country in Europe. And look what the Nazis did to us, and look what the communists did to us in 1945 to 89. So going back to the story, all of those people went on television and they declared that they're canceling Christmas. And I went on television too, and I said, listen, who do you people think you are? You're some kind of a Grinches canceling Christmas. So I invited people to the biggest Christmas celebration in the land, and I didn't know, but thousands showed up. And we had, I think pretty much we broke a record. We had over 120 police officers, 20 cops on bicycles, 52 or 54 police vehicles, anti-terrorists, SWAT team, and the chief of police. And according to them, I did the unthinkable because I hired carolers and we were singing Christmas carols, and I had barbecues and we gave hundreds of gifts away to the homeless people. And the police came bearing gifts. I ended up with 15 COVID tickets, and it took me 2 years to fight. Well, fast forward, it takes me a very long time, and that's why I wrote the book, to narrate this craziness. But now 2021 shows up, and we were hunted down already for over a year. Every church service, and I have 5 church services a week, we had police officers observing, monitoring, recording. I had helicopters following me. I had undercover police following me. I had police vehicles following me. I mean, it was a crazy time. I ended up with so many tickets during this period. So they would block a driveway of our church, preventing parishioners from coming in. And this was going on at the beginning of 2021. And then the famous Get Out video happened when right now, actually, we are, Jesse, in an anniversary of what happened 4 years ago, because this happened during the Passover celebration. What is Passover for Christians? Passover, and for the Jewish people too, is the greatest time in a year when we celebrate death and resurrection of Jesus Christ. It's a holy season. And those gangsters in uniform entered our church with their guns, with their uniforms, with their tasers and handcuffs, demanding, trespassing, unwelcome, demanding that we stop church service. And I just wouldn't have any of it. So I simply, in my opinion, I articulated what people were feeling for over a year already, and I told them to get out. And as you remember, the Get Out video, it took me over 30 times to tell them to get out, and eventually they go. But as you know, they came back with a vengeance. That video was watched over 1 billion times. It was the most viewed video on earth during that Passover celebration of 2021. About 3 weeks later, the SWAT team, anti-terrorists, showed up, and they found crooked judges. The first one, David Gates, gave them the power to enter our church anytime they wanted and with whomever they wished. So they showed up with anti-terrorists. And then they found another crooked judge, John Rook the Crook, I call him. Well, the Chief Justice, that gave them the power to arrest anyone that would dare to oppose the health inspectors and the Nazis. By the way, at that time, I was highly criticized for calling them names. I simply just called them by their proper pronouns. It's all about the proper pronouns right now. So I'm calling them by their proper pronouns. They act like Nazis, and I call them Nazis. Communism and socialism, it's a hybrid. So they found another judge, Adam Germain, and ultimately, as you remember, we were arrested in the middle of the highway in rain with my brother David by anti-terrorists and charged with insane charges. So listen to the charges. Officiating an illegal gathering. That sounds familiar for the Polish ears, because in Poland, that's exactly the language the communists and the socialists were using. And if you know history, that's exactly what the Nazi Party was using the same language, officiating in illegal gathering, participating in illegal gathering, and inciting people. So, in other words, inviting people to a church service. Ridiculous. We spent 3 days and 2 nights on concrete, couldn't sleep. Every half hour, police would bang on the doors, preventing us from even falling asleep. We faced the judge, another crooked judge, Adam Germain, and ultimately later on, he found us guilty on everything. And not only he found us guilty, he gave us a compelled speech order. I don't know if you remember that. By the judge's order, we were commanded by law, or we would be found in contempt of court, which is a prison, to parrot, to recite a government-approved script regarding this nonsense that we were witnessing. And of course, being a pastor, I simply just could not agree to this. I grabbed the microphone and I said, Judge, I hope you're listening to me clearly. I will never obey your order. I'm called to preach the truth, not to repeat your lies. And my brother David did the same thing. And later on, we were arrested again in the middle of the road, in snow under the bridge, for participating in peaceful assembly in a rally. And then we were arrested multiple times after that, and the convoy came. And during that time, people in Canada realized that this is not going away unless we rise up. And I said that from the very beginning. We, the people, we have the power to stop this nonsense. We, the people, we can say no more. We're not going to participate in your social, evil, wicked, illegal experiment. And that's exactly what we did. The trackers called me at that time. I was very well known. As you remember, they called me Canada's pastor. I was traveling all over. I was doing church services all across this country, Ottawa, other provinces, Supreme Court. I was everywhere. We did rallies. We started with 8 people. And by the time I was arrested, we had 20,000 people on the streets of Calgary every single week. And I would go to other rallies across. And when the trackers started to roll, I received a phone call from the main organizer. And he says, Pastor, would you be willing to become our pastor for the movement? And would you be willing to conduct some church services for us? So that's what I did. I was with the hurting people and I was cheering them up. I would bring my worshipers, and we had speakers, and we were telling people that freedom does not come from government. Freedom comes from God. Jesus died for our freedom, and that's what we're celebrating right now, Jesse. It's the freedom that he died for. The Bible says, who comes to me is free indeed. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. That's God's idea. That's not man's idea for a man to be free. And as a clergy, as a man, my job is to set the captives free. My job is to point people to God and say, listen, go to him. He wants you to be free. He will set you free. And that's pretty much what I did through this whole ordeal. I was reminding people that the good, the bad, and the ugly is going to be judged. That one day those wicked, evil people will face the judge of judges. That those rogue, woke, corrupted, compromised, hypocritical judges and the politicians will face the judge of judges. And that was my message. I remember the last time before I was arrested and charged with terrorism, I said to the crowd in Okotoks, I think it was, or High River, and I said to the people, listen, remember their names, because one day when we get the power back, we should revisit this and go after the villains. Because we cannot just talk about justice without some form of Nuremberg number 2. Justice demands restitution. We cannot move on because people died, because of what the government did, what the mainstream media did, what the judges did, what the so-called health agents did, corrupted to the core, the doctors, the nurses, the health inspectors. We need justice demands restitution. And we remember the names. I said the names of the teachers and the politicians. And one day, perhaps God is going to give us the power to go after those people and make them accountable. Well, just a couple days before I went to Quds, in Quds, there was a track convoy. at the border between Montana and Alberta, and I received a phone call from a person, and he said, "Pastor, come. There is police dressed in black like gangsters pointing machine guns at our children playing hockey, street hockey. People are depressed. People don't know what to do. They're losing hope. Can you come and cheer us up? Can you come and do church services?" That's what I did. I took my worshiper, we took speakers, we took food, and we raised food for the truckers, for Ottawa, funds, you name it. We did what we could. And I took my son Nathaniel and we went to Milk River. I did a church service over there, Lord's Supper, worshiping, and then I went to Coutts. And by the way, the police officers, the RCMP, opened the barricade for me, and we went to Coutts without any interruption. And what did I do? Well, we did Lord's Supper. We sang songs, and I prayed for people, and I delivered that 90 minutes mini motivational speech, sermon, whatever you want to call it, reminding people that there is more of us than the villains. We have to be together. We have to hold the line. I reminded them about God and what I saw growing up behind the Iron Curtain. And I guess the speech was so powerful because when I stepped out of my house Tuesday, I think it was the 9th of February, 2022, when I stepped out of my home, I didn't know that the police officers were monitoring me 24 hours, 7 days a week. Well, I didn't care. Everything I was saying was public. I was live streaming my sermons and events and speeches. I have nothing to be ashamed of. I have not broken the law. Them were breaking the law. So I didn't care really that they are following me and monitoring me. But my house was staked. I stepped out of the house and just see I was arrested by every force in the land. They were detectives, undercover police, SWAT teams, special anti-terrorist team with cameras. They were uniformed Calgary police. And of course, this was not the first time I was arrested by such a force. I was arrested when I did my tour in USA. And I spent 4 months educating Americans about communism, socialism, sharing my story that Canada has fallen. And I started to call Canada China because that's exactly what we have right now. Canada has fallen. This is not a sovereign nation. We have been taken over by a very evil, wicked, globalist agenda. So upon arrival from US in Montana, when I was boarding the plane, you have to, send a manifest. And I called my lawyers. I asked them if there is anything that I should be aware of. And they said no. In air, they activated 2 warrants for my arrest, criminal charges. Upon my arrival, I was immediately arrested stepping out of the plane. I mean, I've never seen anyone ever being arrested in plane or on the tarmac. I mean, it was surreal. It was crazy. I was charged with criminal offenses, criminal charges, inciting people to come to church, officiating an illegal gathering, participating in illegal gathering. I was criminally charged for doing a church service where I baptized my daughter in a river in a public park outside. I was charged criminally for not wearing a muzzle, and off I went to prison again. So anyway, ultimately, when I was charged with terrorism and inciting mischief, I was arrested by RCMP, that's like American FBI, and interrogated for hours and hours, roughed up. I was assaulted by the police multiple times. They almost broke my my shoulders. They cracked both of them, my wrists. I was so brutally arrested every time that it was like someone would take a knife and cut with a knife around my wrists. To this day, I have scars, just like someone took a knife around my wrist. I don't know if you can see it. Probably not. It's like a scar around. It was brutal. I mean, very painful what they did to me. Once I was transported by the police after the highway arrest, upside down, my feet up, my head on the ground, and like a piece of meat. It was surreal. It was incredible, crazy what those people had in their mind. Like, why? I have never been arrested for any violent crime, no assault, no threats, never. I am a priest. I'm a pastor preaching truth and feeding the poor. I was treated like El Chapo of Calgary, Al Capone of Canada. Off I went to prison after the interrogation, and it is a shocker. And all of that, I did a journal day by day what happened in prison, and it's absolute crazy story. I was taken to a solitary confinement, and the next day I realized I probably will not come out of this ordeal alive. Remember, they tried to murder me already multiple times, and here I am the next day being taken and placed in metal cages in Calgary Remand Center. The the guards place me in metal cages no bigger than a man sitting. So you're sitting like this, you cannot stretch, you cannot move, you're half suffocated, hot, crazy. And to this day, we don't know why they would keep me in metal cages, and we don't know how long, because of course there are no watches there. And this treatment I received twice, and they denied my access to my lawyers for 3 weeks, and off I went to solitary confinement. So ultimately, I spent most of my time in solitary confinement and concrete cells. So they would take me from my solitary cell to another one on concrete, no water, no washroom. And that was going on for a long time. And then, because I was so popular in prison, Jesse, I truly, it sounds weird, but I was a hero among the inmates. Everywhere I would show up, they would bang on the doors and they would yell, "Free Pastor Art, free Pastor Art." Even the criminals realized that I don't belong there, that this is crazy, that I'm a political prisoner for just doing what's right. And I had such a huge support from those people that 21 days in my solitary confinement, they sent a petition to the director of the prison remand center, Fader, his name is, demanding that I would be released or there is going to be a riot. So ultimately, the next day, I was released for 1 hour to mingle with the inmates, and I was able to organize church services because the religious rights, were denied to prisoners in Canada. We were not allowed to participate in the church services. I requested that multiple times. I was denied, and so were the inmates. So I started to do church services. I prayed for the people, and I think I broke some kind of a record. I had every inmate during my church services with me from my unit. It was incredible. Everyone was coming. Muslims, atheists, and hardcore gangsters, criminals were attending my church services. I became so popular in jail that they were listening to me and my directions. So that scared the government, and I was literally kidnapped, Jesse, from Calgary without the knowledge of my legal counselors and my family. And I was taken to Edmonton, shackled like an animal, taken to Maxpot. Maxpot is a prison for the most dangerous terrorists. I was there by myself. No one else was there. It was a freak show, freezing conditions, shivering. I asked for a blanket, and the guard laughed in my face and said, "At least you have fresh air." It was insane. So I called my wife and I said my goodbyes. During that time, and all of those details again are inside the book with the names and what really happened. 5 inmates already testified to my lawyers that the guards were giving them incentives to murder me in prison. So we knew that this situation is dangerous. So when they kept me in freezing conditions and I was allowed to come out for 30 minutes, I called my wife and I said, "I think this is a goodbye. I don't think I'm coming out of this. They're going to tell you I had a heart attack or something, failure, something happened, because it's so crazy cold. I can't sleep. I can't function. It's freezing. I'm shivering, and I will not survive." So my wife immediately contacted the lawyers. Lawyers send a letter to the judge. The judge learns about what's going on, and that scared the private institution. You got to remember, remand centers are privately owned. It's a business. Twice a day, inmates are being given highly addictive narcotics twice a day, and all the narcotics and everything, it's in the book. In the morning, guards and nurses come to every cell in the morning and in the evening, offering us 5 different highly addictive narcotics like cocaine and fentanyl, different names, the same garbage, twice a day. I saw inmates selling and buying drugs that were provided by the guards and the nurses. I saw them snorting. I mean, a total insanity. The system is set up just like homelessness, which is a multi-billion-dollar business that they don't want to get rid of. Prison is a multi-billion-dollar business as well, and it's a great way of hooking those people on drugs, making sure it's a revolving door that those inmates will eventually come back, because you're hooking them on highly addictive narcotics, you're releasing them from prison, and what they're going to do, they're going to turn back to crime to get the narcotics back into their system, and then they commit crimes and they come back to the remand center. So it's a never-ending flow of money. It's like a never-ending river. Homelessness, poverty, and prison. It's a never-ending flow of billions of dollars for the most crooked system I have ever seen in my life. So going back to the story, the judge learns about what's going on, and I was taken to a psych ward. Without the evaluation of the doctors, without the knowledge of Alberta Health Services, I was placed for a week with a schizophrenic that murdered his brother with a machete. I received a letter, and I have all those things in the book, including the letter here, which is insane if you think about it. So I wrote my book on a pieces of papers from the prison. They give you all those request forms, and the inmates were giving me those request forms under the door. I was able to write those little things between the lines. And this document here, it basically says, here's my arrest on the tarmac, coming from the U.S. This is my picture in New York Times Square when Americans were fighting for my life. This document said that they can keep me in a max spot indefinitely. Freezing conditions, solitary confinement, entire unit for hundreds of inmates. I was the only person locked there 23 hours and a half, solitary confinement, freezing conditions, guarded by 3 guards. And the document says they can do this indefinitely. And I said, that's it, I'm not coming alive. Also, I was told that I am considered the most dangerous inmate in the country. I was not allowed to have a pen. Can you believe it? I could not even have a pen. Why? Because they knew I'm writing everything I see. I'm writing the book. I'm writing the whole story. My book was confiscated already by the Canadian government 3 times. Canadian government confiscated my book. That should trigger in your heart, in your mind, at least an interest to get that book, to find out what is the Canadian government so afraid of. 3 times, and we had to fight for it. And ultimately, my lawyer smuggled the book out of prison. Thank you for good, courageous people, because I would not have this account of what happened. So I entered the schizophrenic's cell, and I saw on his little desk he had like 15 pens, and I shared with him. I said, well, by the Canadian government, I am considered so dangerous I cannot have a pen. And he grabs one. He says, well, you can have mine. So I kept writing the book. Can you imagine a pastor was considered the most dangerous terrorist in the country, to a point that I could not even have a pen? And here is a murderer that chopped someone, his own brother, with a machete, and there was no problem for him to have pens and all kinds of different things. That's the level of corruption we witnessed. So fast forward, ultimately, I was released on bail and spent almost 2 years, a year and a half on house arrest and then prison. I was found guilty by a corrupted judge, Gordon Krinky, of everything, including terrorism, for my peaceful sermon. During my sermon, I told the Canadians to stand for God and state given rights, but do it peacefully, no guns, no swords. We can paralyze their system, I said, by what the Solidarity Movement did, which is a general strike. While the judge concluded that this was terrorism, and this was inciting mischief. And during that time, Jesse, it's important because we are in an election, it's a federal election, and people deserve to know. In one of the chapters in the book, I've included people that call themselves political fixers. So here's what happened. I was very popular, especially in the States, and the Canadian government came to me multiple times, about 10 times. They visited me when I was on the house arrest, different agents, different people from the conservative government telling me I was offered money. I was offered a guaranteed seat at the legislature. I was offered a government job, $250,000 a year. I was told I would be a chair for the public inquiry. That Manning took it after. I was offered all kinds of trinkets if I will stop talking about my experience, if I will stop telling people what the conservative government did to us in the province of Alberta.
You're
Well,
meaning the provincial government, because the federal government was the Liberals and Trudeau, but it was the provincial government that was coming to you, which were conservative at that time and still is conservative now.
yes. Well, there is, unfortunately, or fortunately, depends how you look at it, because I think people should know there is a federal conservative government attached to the story. So I'll tell you what happened. So provincial government was offering me all kinds of different things. They said, we want you at our table, but you have to shut up. You have to stop talking. When 10 months, this was going on for 10 months, multiple meetings, of course, my conversation with the Premier Danielle Smith and phone calls and other different things in the background. And then, and which, by the way, I did not release for the people that are concerned. I did not release my conversation with Danielle Smith, the Premier of Alberta. It was our lawyer that we fired, a criminal lawyer that had this recording and released it to CBC. I was betrayed by our own lawyer, and we fired him for what he did, of course, and he was under investigation. But that's another side of the story. Going back to them realizing that Artur Pawlowski is not for sale, and I told them, I'm not for sale. My family is not for sale because we have been already bought with the precious blood of Jesus. I started to receive for about 3 months phone calls from people that call themselves political fixers. I don't know, Jesse, if you're familiar with those types of people, but
Ruthless.
government, federal and provincial, uses people that call themselves political fixers when there is a problem, when there is a bribery, when there is a blackmail, when there is a situation that the politicians don't want to be seen being involved. They send people that call themselves political fixers. So I started to receive phone calls for 3 months on a regular basis from people that call themselves political fixers. And here is a crazy part of the story, which I included. And that's why people need to read this book, because it's so important for the people to find out what is this federal election all about. People need to know this. And the book is, you can get it directly from my publisher. But if you're dealing with Amazon in Canada, you can get it from amazon.ca, Lions Do Not Bow, or you can get it from amazon.com for American people, and the rest of the world, amazon.com, Lions Do Not Bow as well. Get your own copy. I think there is no shipping in Amazon, and you get it the next day. So going back to the story, here is what they said, which is a shocker to me. It was a shocker to me then, and it's hard to believe. But of course, being in politics for so many years, this is how those people operate. So here's what they said. They said, you're causing the Conservative Party a trouble, and we're heading into an election, federal election. And there has been a meeting between Stephen Harper, the ex-prime minister, Jason Kenney, the premier of Alberta, and Pierre Poilievre, and they've decided to remove you from the board game. That's what they call it, a game. To them is a game. Your life is a game to them. And they said they've decided to remove you. And I said, wait a second. Why Pierre Poilievre? Well, I never met the guy. I have nothing to do with this guy. Why is he in the mix? And I was told because he's afraid by exposing or talking about the provincial conservative government, you're jeopardizing the federal conservative government as well.
When was this?
That was when I was still on house arrest before my final sentencing. That's 2023, I think it was 2023. So here is what they said. If you don't withdraw yourself from the public life for 2 years, they asked me for 2 years. If you don't withdraw yourself until the federal election from the public speaking, the judge is bought and paid for, and he is ordered to send you to prison for many years, and you will be assassinated in prison. This is what I was communicated. So allegedly,
How? Like by
that's
someone phoned you, someone emailed you, someone texted you?
yes,
How was this communicated to you?
multiple times by a phone call conversation. If I would tell you who this person is, first of all, you wouldn't want to believe me. Secondly, I would be shot in the head. That's how crazy the story is. This is one of the most powerful people in the country that phoned me and communicated those demands. They said, you're jeopardizing the federal election. You have to go. Either you go peacefully or you will be killed. And Gordon Krinky is bought and paid for by us. He knows what to do. And then, it's up to you. And I went to the trial. And here is a really hard part of the story, because I had to say goodbye to my family. I had to say goodbye to my children. And I said, if Artur Pawlowski is to go down, if I am to die in prison, then at least let it be with a big bang. And I did a church service outside of Lethbridge Court, and I repeated everything that I was arrested, imprisoned, and charged with. And I said, now you have it. I will not apologize. When I was in prison, another crooked person, a Crown prosecutor from a special prosecutors unit, Stephen Johnston. Stephen Johnston is a liar, manipulator, and he came to us twice and said, I can go home if I will just say I'm guilty. Because what they wanted a story, a front page story, that the symbol of freedom, Artur Pawlowski apologizes for what he did and he's sorry. That's the only thing they wanted, to send a message to others that they can break anyone. But I didn't do it. And by the miracle of God, I was let out of prison, psych ward, placed on house arrest for a year and a half. And then I faced that crooked judge that was bought and paid for, Gordon Krinky, which was not from Lethbridge. All of those crooked judges were from all over this land. Adam Germain was from Fort McLeod, not from Calgary, and he sentenced me. Then you've got John Rook from another place, I think Edmonton. Then you've got Gordon Krinky from Medicine Hat. Those were all agents of the corrupted system, because the process is punishment. It's a lawfare. And they managed to get crooked judges from all across this land to do what they were told to do. Gordon Krinky, during the trial, looked at me and says, I can send you to prison for 12 and a half years. You got to remember, Stephen Johnston also, before I forget, is the one that colluded with RCMP officers illegally in a sealed envelope later on, that another crooked judge sealed it because people could not see what really happened in Coutts and Milk River, Alberta, that ultimately sent the boys from Coutts to prison for 6 and 6.5 years of imprisonment. That's the level of corruption we're dealing with the conservative government here in the province of Alberta. So going back to Gordon Krinky, he says, I can send you to prison for 12.5 years. And then he stops everything. And again, you got to remember, I have been in courts many times, and this is the first time that I witnessed a judge stopping everything. He says, I need to consult this with others. He leaves us, full house, hundreds of people outside, hallway filled with people, mainstream media, alternative media. And the judge leaves us dry, goes for an hour, comes back, talks. We don't know who he talks to. and he says, you're free to go. So we, to this day, we do not know what happened. We do not know what happened. Maybe perhaps they didn't want to turn me into a martyr because of my powerful friends in the States. As you know, this story was an international story, and I had governors, Congress people, senators, Trump family, and others advocating for me because this is a great injustice. This is Soviet style, Nazi style political, imprisonment and punishment. So I was let out by miracle of God, and I wrote the book. And of course, no one would touch this book in Canada, so I had to send it to a brave Americans, and they published the whole book. So this whole story is narrated in a book. What happened in prison, the background story, my interactions with the politicians, my phone call with Danielle Smith, the premier, the political fixers, the crooked judges, the Crown prosecutor Stephen Johnson, and others. All of that is in a book. And why Pierre Poilievre? Why I'm warning Canadians about not choosing this man for your own good is because he is part of the globalist takeover of the Canadian society. He worked for WEF. He was part of the Young Global Leader. He is also a protege of Stephen Harper that brought WEF to Canada, and Pierre Poilievre signed with Stephen Harper Paris Accord, the climate garbage, the Agenda 2030 insanity. So in a way, he's part of the carbon tax craziness that is destroying our beloved Canada. People deserve to know also, as you remember, I have been voted to become a leader of a political party, and ultimately the fixers tornadoed or torpedoed my party, the Independence Party of Alberta. I was kicked out from my own party that thousands of people voted for me, and 9 people in the board decided to eliminate me because we have become a threat, a real threat to the corruption in the province of Alberta. So I started my own political party. Within few days, we managed to register Solidarity Movement of Alberta, and a miracle started to happen. We took down the Minister of Justice that locked us up like animals. We took down the Minister of Health, Jason Copping, and Travis, what was his name? Taves. He was eliminated. Finance Minister Jason Kenney got the boot, and Tyler Chandra, the crooked so-called Minister of Justice, was eliminated as well. So we were able to remove some of those people, those monsters, out of power, but they are still working behind the closed doors, plotting and manipulating the system. So
What do you mean? What do you mean by you were able to remove them? Like how? Like what? Like can you maybe elaborate how your movement or you or your people were able to remove these people from their positions?
So we had over 40, I think 44, 45 candidates in the provincial election. And because we stacked those people in key areas, they were able to take the votes out of those crooked politicians, and ultimately they've lost their seats. So
Okay.
because of our candidates taking the needed votes from the crooked politicians, they were not elected. So yes, we did not win any seat, but we ultimately removed the crooks and the monsters, as I call them, out of their power. So what happened was the new premier comes in and gets those people back in through a back door. And that's the problem that I have seen it. Stephen Harper is back in the province of Alberta. Tyler Chandra is back in power through the back door. So the fight continues. In the meantime, what is happening right now, the Canadian government is trying to eliminate Christianity from our country. And the way they're doing it, of course, the tax exemption is under attack, but also they are using the court system that is bringing injunctions, if you will, against the charity organizations. So I'll show you something, Jesse, that most people do not know. This is a letter and people can read the whole thing. You can read the whole thing. It's on streetchurch.ca website. This is a letter from Colleen Sinclair. This is a top lawyer in the city of Calgary, basically stating that we have no rights anymore to protest government. Can you believe, Jesse? I grew up in hell, in a totalitarian regime when people had no rights to protest totalitarian regime, and we are living in a repetition of history. She's stating that we have no right to protest them. If we dare to do it, we will be in contempt of court order, because those devils found a crooked judge that said, yeah, I agree, you have no right to protest, and if you dare to do it, you will be found in contempt of court. Here is the judge's order, if people don't believe what I'm saying. And I warned people. I said, listen, this is a progression. If you don't stop them now, they're going to just keep going. This is Court of Queen's Bench at that time. Now it's the King's Bench. And the judges, this is the judge right here, signed by the judge. And the language, I mean, it's hard to believe. It's an injunction application preventing citizens from protesting. The respondents are not to hold any events in the municipal complex. Should the respondents or any of them wish to challenge the validity of the above noted bylaw, it's a bylaw. We have to take it before him and fight it. The bylaw states that you are not allowed. I'm trying to find you're not allowed to conduct any public gathering in this location.
What year was it signed?
It was already signed, so they have this in a book, which is absolute insanity, since 2015. 2015, 10 years old injunction they're using against the people. So here is what those, and you can read the whole thing. You can read the whole thing on our website, the judge's order, the letter from Colleen Sinclair. You can read the bylaw for yourself, because it's hard to believe. So what is happening, Jesse, is those crooked politicians are looking for crooked judges to find the ones that are willing to put injunctions on our God and state given rights. So Canadians, we thought that we are protected under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, right? It states in a preamble, whereas Canada acknowledges the supremacy of God and the rule of law, and it states number of fundamentally guaranteed rights. Fundamentally guaranteed rights. Some of them is a right to a peaceful assembly. And that's exactly what we did during the convoy. That's exactly what we did during our protest. It was a peaceful assembly. We're not BLM that is pillaging and, murdering and burning stuff up. We're not Antifa that uses violence and hate. We are Canadians exercising our God and state given rights to a peaceful assembly, freedom of religion, freedom of expression, freedom of media. All of those things have been taken away from Canadians and is being used as they please. So, for example, you can go on the streets of Calgary and you can feed the poor. Most likely, they will not touch you. And don't be offended. They most likely will not touch you because they consider you a nobody. They consider you not a threat, so they will ignore you. However, if you become a threat to them, they already have those injunctions and they already have the crooked judges on standby and they already have the bylaws in their books. If you do not believe me, please Go to the City of Calgary bylaw and Google giving free goods and services is prohibited by law. Just Google it. You can find by yourself all those bylaws. They're in the books. You go to a city website and go and type distribution of printed material. And you will be shocked that you're living in a totalitarian state where the government is telling you you're not allowed to exchange any information. So, for example, if I printed this whole craziness, and if I'll go to the streets of Calgary and I will start hanging this on a public, either parks or sidewalk or in front of City Hall, I will be arrested. I will be arrested because according to them, I'm breaking the law. I am distributing printed material without the government's permit, without the government approval. That's, my friends, what is happening in Canada right now. And now we have the federal election. And please, Jesse, tell me one politician from the mainstream parties that is fighting for our rights and freedoms. Just one that is fighting, exposing what happened to the Canadians with the jobs and lockdowns and muzzling us and all of this stuff. No one.
What about Maxime Bernier? He's been making the rounds. He's come on our show. He's been saying these things. It seems like his interests are in the heart with the people. He's exposing this stuff. We had a very good conversation on here. He's been going on some of these political shows. So that's the only viable.
Yeah, but I think you've missed what I said. A mainstream party.
Okay.
The elected party. So Maxime Bernier, People's Party, which I endorsed. I was at his event here in Calgary a few days ago, and I was asked to introduce him to the crowd. It was great. I really like what he's doing. I am endorsing his party. I'm voting for his party and our church as well. But he's not elected. Right? All elected politicians right now have betrayed Canadians and should be charged with treason. That's what I'm trying to say. All the mainstream parties, so the Conservative Party, the Liberal Party, the NDP Party, all of those parties betrayed Canada. What we need to do, we need to start voting for outsiders, for people from outside of the mainstream parties. So either it's People's Party of Canada, which I'm going to be voting for. There's also Christian Heritage Party. There's also a Grant Abraham United Party of Canada. He's just starting his campaign. So we have independents candidates. So anyone, like I said so many times, if my dog was on the ballot and then the three parties, I would vote for my dog. Why? Because my dog doesn't want to hurt people. My dog is not interested in jobbing your children, taxing you to death, and raping you as they please, like the so-called servants of the people that we have right now. We must change this insanity, this revolving door of doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. We must stop voting for the lesser of two evils, because every cycle, Jesse, every election that we have, we are lowering the bar. Instead of raising the bar for the politicians, we're constantly lowering the bar. And now we have wicked monsters ruling over us, people that don't care about us at all, people that steal from us, people that murder our children and our elderly, people that are great con artists. I have to admit, some of those people are great talkers. I give you that. They are great talkers and they are telling people what people want to hear. But in order to know, Jesse, who is who in the zoo, you have to go back and see their track records. Where were those people when we were bleeding on the streets? Where were those people when we were being jobbed? Pierre Poilievre was yelling in Parliament. People have forgotten. Where are the jobs? The whole world is already jobbed and Canadians are still waiting for their job. Where is the job, Prime Minister? He yelled in Parliament. When Christine Anderson came to Canada, the hero, the German hero that fought for Canadians, our politicians betrayed us, but she fought in the European Parliament for us. She's a member of European Parliament. She fought for us. While she came, he threw her under the bus, calling her extremist and Nazi and all those different mean things that he said about this hero. We have to understand that they are the same thing. So you've got the book, right? Although three parties are the same book, sometimes you have a different, there is a front and there is a back of the book, but the inside is the same. They're the same people playing for the same devil. People don't realize that. They think that we can get out of this trouble by doing this cycle of every 10 years we'll vote for the other party. So we've got the liberals, and then 10 years later we're sick and tired of them, we'll vote the conservatives. Then 10 years later we're sick and tired of them, we'll vote for liberals again. And maybe somewhere in between we will vote for the communist and socialist crazy people and the peers. We have to understand that we have been betrayed by those politicians in power, all of them. And we have to start supporting each other. We have to vote for neighbors. Why? I call us neighbors. Why? Because your neighbor knows what you're going through. In other words, he goes through the same difficulties that you're going through. He knows your pain because he goes through the same pain. During this big craziness that we faced in the past few years, Jesse, politicians gave themselves a raise. Remember that? Multiple times. When we were losing money, when we were losing homes, when we were losing businesses, in the city of Calgary, Jesse, we were losing 12 to 15 businesses a day by what the government did to us. While we were losing our loved ones, our children, our elderly, they were giving themselves raise.
And we're talking about people that are making 150,000 plus per year getting raises, not someone who's, struggling, that's 30, 40, 50,000. We're talking about people that are making double, triple, quadruple what everyone else makes, decided to give themselves raises, and they keep giving themselves raises while everybody else struggles. These parasites that are in government feel they need to take more. They deserve more for the tyranny that they're putting the people under.
That's 100% what's going on. So let's say a miracle happens and Maxime Bernier wins, or let's say I would win. I'll tell you what I would do. And I gave that option to Albertans, and they have chosen the very government that raped them and destroyed them and murdered them. But that's their choice, freedom. They have chosen, they have spoken. And I think they're going to do the same thing, unfortunately, in this cycle. But let's say a miracle happened and I was elected. Well, first thing I would do is I would lower our salary to be in solidarity with the hurting people. Of course, I would not lock people up. I would not do this craziness. I would protect people, not to cause them harm like this government did. All three parties, they did this together. So instead of being in solidarity with people, instead of understanding that there's so many millions of Canadians hurting, let's lower our salary to be in this pain together. What do? They do opposite. How do they vote? What they stand for? We have to understand, in the Bible it says, by their fruits you shall know them. In other words, by what they do, not what they say. Because in political realm, those people are great con artists, and they are very charismatic. They know how to cater to people's feelings, and they will tell you what you want to hear. But if you look what they do, how they greatly benefit themselves. So, for example, Pierre Poilievre never worked outside of politics in his life. And when he won, the first time he went into politics, he was worth a couple $100,000. Do you know, Jesse, a few years later, your savior of Canada, you know how much money he has? Over $30 million. And this is what we know of. over $30 million. So let me ask you a simple question. Maybe I'm just a simple man, and mathematics to me is 2 plus 2 is 4. Maybe you have a different mathematics. So let me ask you this question. On a salary of $150,000 for a few years, how is possible for a man to have over $30 million? How? What happened? And he is your savior. He is in it with you together, with a grandma that cannot pay. My mom just passed away, Jesse. A few months ago, my mom passed away because she was on a waiting list to have a kidney transplant. But because she was not jobbed, Canadian government removed her, conservative government removed her from the waiting list. And ultimately she died. My own mom,
Sad to
2
hear.
months ago, died because of what those monsters did by removing her from the list because she was not willing to take the deadly job. And, we're dealing with people that have no conscience. We're dealing with people that have no moral standards. They are whores of Babylon that will go to bed with every monkey. And it seems no one is here to stop them because they are giving people great speeches, and people unfortunately don't want to go and see what those people are really doing. Sheila, the woman that was murdered by the Alberta's conservative government. Remember her? She was waiting as well, like my mom. She was on a transplant list, and she was denied by Daniel Smith and conservative government. Ultimately, she was murdered. She died because of what the government did. And there is stories like this I hear every day. People are contacting me. People are telling me about what's going on. Their families are dying. People are hurting. And there is zero accountability. There's no one in government right now, if it comes to elected officials, that is willing to fight for Canadians, is willing to fight for our God and state given rights. We cannot, people say to me, we got to move on. We cannot move on until justice is served. It's like saying to the world in 1945, well, let's just forget what Adolf Hitler did. Let's just forget what the Nazi Party did. Nuremberg is not needed. Let's just move on. No, Nuremberg was needed symbolically to send a message to the future murderers, psychopaths like we have right now, that one day justice will be served. We need this again, but there's no one at this moment elected that is willing to bring accountability and checks and balances. While we are hurting, we got 450,000 bureaucrats working in the province of Alberta. They have not missed a paycheck, Jesse. They have not missed a paycheck. They are doing very well. If you don't believe me, go to restaurants, packed restaurants. All those people work for government, or they are sucking the tits of the government, our taxpayers' money. They did not miss a paycheck. While at the same time, in my lineup, I have grandmas, I have families, moms with children, elderly. My mom passed away, and my father cannot keep his house because he cannot afford to keep his house because the taxes are killing him. Taxes are killing him. He barely makes, he's 75 years old, Jesse, and he still drives Uber just to keep his house. This is your average Canadian. This is your average Albertan hurting. People are losing homes because of the crooked government that is destroying us. And somehow, I don't understand why people are refusing to see this, and they are refusing to do something else. If you're going to keep voting for the monsters, the leeches, because that's what they are, sucking the blood out of us, if you keep voting for them over and over again, please, you cannot expect different results. That's insanity. We must change. We must send a message to those people that if you betray Canada and Canadians, we will never ever support you. We'll never vote for you. But it's opposite. In Canada, the liars, the con artists, the cheaters, they have 15,000 people coming to their show because that's what it is. It's a show. Nothing more. It's a show. I'm heartbroken, Jesse, for my beloved nation. I love Canada. This is a beautiful nation. Beautiful, amazing, blessed. If I was the premier of Alberta, Alberta would be the richest place on earth. We literally sleep on oil and natural gas. We've got other resources. And look at us. Do you know? Some people may say you're exaggerating. Well, you do the stats yourself. Do you know that Alberta is in a worst shape within the Confederation if it comes to defaulting on credit cards? Do you know that?
No.
Alberta, out of all the provinces and territories, we are in a worst shape if it comes to defaulting on credit cards. Do you know that Canada is in a worst economical shape out of all the G7 countries? We have the biggest national debt per capita, and we have the biggest personal debt out of all the G7 countries. Canada is being wiped out and Canadians are being wiped out. And who is doing this to us? Is the Conservative Party, Liberal Party, and NDP in a coalition of all those parties. And yet people are not seeing it because I think they're not hurting enough yet. I think that's the problem. Polish people from the Eastern Bloc, from behind the Iron Curtain, we grew up in hell, Jesse. We grew up in poverty. We grew up under the boots of a totalitarian regime. So when something like this is happening again, we see it, we smell it right away. But I'll tell you something, Jesse, we will survive. We will survive because we grew up in this environment. We know how to survive. I am really worried for the Canadians that have never seen something like this before. I am really worried for the young generation that doesn't know how to survive craziness of poverty. That's why we have the biggest amount of suicide ever recorded in the history of Canada. That's why we have the biggest amount of fentanyl overdoses in the history of our country, because I think people are not able to cope with this amount of hostility coming from the government. They just don't know how to deal with this. Most Canadians, in their mind, when they're growing up, they think that government works for you. The government are the good guys, that the police officers are the men in blue, and they are here to protect you. They're here for law and order, accountability. But the past 5 years showed us that that's not the case. And I think what is going to happen, Jesse, they have this idea that the government is not for you right now has to catch up with their brain, because they're already hurting, but the brain is fighting. You know what I mean? There is this disconnect between the reality and what they were educated to believe. And when this will catch up, perhaps then people will never again vote for the globalist agents that did this to them. If this will not happen, Jesse, I believe very hard times are coming for Canadians. Economy is collapsing. This rhetorics of war with United States of America, that's insanity, total insanity. Canada is not protected by our own, army. We do not have the ability to protect our sovereign nation, which has been fallen already. We rely on America and its power. And now, what do? Instead of reasoning and making a deal with our neighbors that protect us, we fight them. Seriously? You want to fight the very people that are protecting you militarily? You're insane. You are absolutely insane. You cannot possibly win this fight And that tells me that Canada is heading for an economical disaster even more. I think that more people are going to lose their properties, their houses. And this is pretty sad because if it comes to resources and ability to prosper in this country is enormous. If you had the right politicians that actually are willing to work for you, not against you.
Now, what about the MAIDS program in Canada? So, euthanasia is homicide, such as legal killings by doctors and nurses, and it's become the fifth leading cause of death in Canada. MAID in Canada is the world's fastest growing assisted dying program. Its only deaths are, they say, from cancer, heart disease, the C19 and accidents exceed the number of deaths from maids. What's your thoughts on the government legally murdering their own people?
It's not thoughts, Jesse. When my mom was in a hospital, 7 doctors, one after another, were coming to my mom, hurting, hurting in a hospital, asking her to end her life. My brother was so upset that he threw them out of the room. 7 doctors. You see, they are not doctors anymore. They are bloody murderers. They are doctors Mengeles. This is a culture of death. We're no longer trying to save lives in this country. We try to murder as many people as possible. If I was in power, those doctors would be fired. And if any doctor is not saving lives but is encouraging people to end life, would be criminally charged. This is insanity. You know, their oath used to be and do no harm. What do they do right now? They're harming people. They're using your moment of where you're the most vulnerable, when you're hurting, maybe you're losing hope, maybe you don't see a way out of your trouble, and instead of helping them to see the light in a tunnel, what do? They crush you. The nurses, the doctors, so-called doctors, crush your spirit. They crush your hope. They're telling you there is no way. They said to my mom, there is no way out of this. You're going to die, and that's now. Instead of putting her back on the transplant list to save her life, they eventually murdered my mom. And this is not just my story. This is a story of tens of thousands of Canadians right now across this country because those doctors are bloody murderers. And why they're doing this? They're doing this because the politicians that's supposed to protect Canadians are also bloody murderers. This is, Jesse, the greatest takeover we have ever seen in humanity. When they are telling you, you will own nothing and you will be happy, they mean it. They actually mean it. This is not just a joke. This is not like throwing things left and right. They mean that. They are coming after your homes. They're coming after your farms. They're coming after your properties. They're coming after your money that you have in your banks. They are coming after your children, and they are coming after you elderly to eliminate them. And the sooner, the better. This is the politics of the 21st century in Canada. That's why I don't understand Canadians anymore. I don't understand why would you vote for the same parties that did this to you and are still doing this to you. The Nazi Party of Canada, the Liberal Party, the Communist Socialist Party, the NDP, and the treacherous party, the traitors party of Canada, the conservative, so-called conservative party. They're all the same, leading people to the same slaughterhouse. And yet people are not seeing it because they're being taken to the slaughterhouse with different wagons, if you will. The nicest one, the most equipped with the best grain, is the so-called conservative wagon, train. And people are not saying, oh, it's nice, it's good. Oh, he talks good, he's great. He's going to axe the tax. Listen, all of the taxes should be axed, not just one that he helped to implement, by the way, with Harper. This is the craziness. It was him. It was Pierre Poilievre with Harper that brought the carbon craziness, the Paris Accord. And now the man that brought this garbage on us says, let's axe one. And then Daniel Smith is like, yeah, cheering, let's axe that tax. Do you know that the province of Alberta has its own carbon tax? And she's not talking about that one. You know that? She's not talking about let's axe the provincial carbon tax as well. No. Let's just only axe the federal one. And people do not understand. I did an entire expose on who brought this garbage to Canada. It's a shocker. I encourage people to read, to find out for yourself. Don't just go by feelings. Don't go back to apathy. I was a conservative all my life and I'm going to die a conservative. Then you're going to die because you're stupid. You're just plain stupid. You don't understand what's really going on, that those people are no longer conservatives. So you maybe remember 30, 40 years ago that party actually stood for some conservative values, but that's not the party today. There's no difference. There's no difference between the conservative NDP and Liberal Party. Zero. They all stand for murder of children. They all stand for sexual depravity. They all stand for bathroom craziness, where a dude dressed as a woman can go into a woman's bathroom. That's insanity. And they all stand for that. They all stand for MAID. They all stand for immigration. While Canadians are living in poverty, over 3 million Canadians are living below poverty level. They are bringing more immigrants and they are going to provide houses for them and money, while our own children are starving. What's wrong with you? I just don't get it. What's wrong with you, Canadians? Why can't you vote for someone else? Someone that didn't hurt you in the past, decades. Let's try someone new. I'll tell you what will happen if this will click. I don't think it's going to happen, unfortunately. I think that people are bent on destruction right now. But let's say a miracle happened and they would vote for a new party. Let's say People's Party of Canada. Let's say a miracle happens. Maxime Bernier would outdo himself. People would do everything in their power to bless Canada. I'll tell you why, psychologically. Because they would want to prove to you, Canadians, that they were the right choice. Why? Because they would want to be elected again in 4 years. You understand the psychology behind it? The new party, for the first 3 cycles, so first 3 elections, would be your best choice. The new people would be your best choice because they will be doing everything in their power to give you the most benefits you can imagine, to prove that they were the right choice. But instead, what do? We vote for the same devils, the same wicked, evil liars, con artists over and over again because we say it's splitting the votes. No, good people should never vote for traitors. Good people should vote for those that are truthful, not the opposite. And that's why you got this revolving door doing the same thing over and over again. And I don't know how to help Canadians anymore if it comes to this. My lineups are getting bigger and bigger of hurting people. I got elderly, I got children in the lineups, I got single moms in the lineup, and it's getting bigger and bigger. More people are hurting, and yet they keep voting for the same parties that did this to them, are still doing this to them. Stop it. Stop it. If you love your country and your children, stop it. Vote for the new party. Vote for a dog. You would be better off without politicians than with politicians right now. Actually, if tomorrow we are waking up and every single politician is gone, we would be better off.
Well, if I ever got elected for prime minister, the first thing I would do is fire everyone that worked for government, everybody. And everybody would have to write a letter saying what they do with their position and how it benefits the people of Canada. And then the people would decide whether or not that position was actually valid to take Canadian taxpayer money. That's one of the first things. But we have a question here, or Lorna from our Rumble channel says, there isn't anyone else. Last election, Maxwell had the vote split with the Liberals. So there's a lot of people that think that if they vote for Max, the Conservatives are going to lose their votes and the Liberals are going to get reelected. So they don't even want to vote for Max, even though they know he's the best choice, because they think the Liberals will get back in. But what they don't comprehend, it doesn't matter if it's Liberal or Conservatard, they are both the same wings of the same bird. So it doesn't matter if it's Carney or Poilievre. That's what people need to get into their head. As bad as Liberals are, Conservatives are the exact same thing. They're controlled by the same banker, gangster, criminal cartel that's manipulating and causing all of this death and destruction. So you vote for Conservative or Conservatards or Libtards, whatever you want to vote for, it's controlled by the same people. So if you think your vote's going to be better by going to Conservative, you're voting for your slave master to continue on the same evil cycle. Vote for anybody. If you don't like PPC, vote for independent. Vote for anybody but the top 3 or 4. If everybody voted for someone who wasn't the top 3 or 4, and we had all the people who said voting is, my vote doesn't matter, I shouldn't vote. 60% of Canadians don't vote. If all 60% of those Canadians came out and voted for anybody but those 3 or 4, even the Green Party is still controlled by the same people. So those 4 parties, if everybody voted for anything but those 4 parties, maybe we could have some change. And maybe something could happen different in Canada where we could stop this tyranny that is obviously, penetrated into every single facet of our life.
100% agree with you. This is the problem we are witnessing every election, is the fear. The operatives are telling you, you're splitting the votes, the Liberals will get in power. What is the difference? Or let me ask you this question. How would you like to die? I mean, because that's ultimately that's what we are heading into, a slaughterhouse. So how would you prefer to die? Because all those leading parties are leading you into a distraction. So you want to die slower death or faster death? It doesn't matter. In the end of the day, you're dead and your children are dead and the future of this country is dead. So stop supporting. Even if the Liberals win, those psychopathic Nazis, let's say they win, at least Maxime Bernier or any other party outside of the globalistic establishment gets a momentum, and we can build on this. Solidarity movement started in 1980, but it took 9 years until we won the election in 1989. It takes time. But we have to start the process. If we keep doing the same thing, and if we keep believing the same lie that you're splitting the right votes, the Liberals will stay in power, so what? We will get a momentum. Let's elect at least few people from the PPC or from Grant Abraham United Party of Canada or from Christian Heritage Party or whatever, independent. So we can build on the momentum. If we don't start the process, if we don't stop and go opposite direction, there is no hope. Zero. They're going to finish you off. They are finishing you off. So don't tell me that we have a choice if it comes to NDP, Liberal, and so-called conservatives. We don't. They all work for the same devil, the same master, globalistic master. So stop supporting the globalists. Start supporting anyone, everyone. I said it at the beginning. If my dog was on the ballot, I would prefer to vote for that dog than for those crooked, corrupted, treacherous operatives for Klaus Schwab and George Soros. We must stop the insanity, and the only way we can do it is by stopping doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. I remember since 95 that I'm here in this country, I hear the same thing over and over again. The same thing. You're splitting the votes. Liberals will get in. NDP will get in. So don't vote. If you give me all the votes, if good people will vote for good candidates, for good parties, there will be no splitting votes. If good people vote for good people, insanity stops. But if good people settle for evil for the sake of temporary peace, you will be enslaved. You will be destroyed. You will. It's just a matter of when, not if.
Have you heard of the word communitarianism, where the needs of the many outweigh individual rights in a capitalistic mixing with communistic society?
Well, I am familiar with the notion. I don't remember hearing that word, but that's exactly what they're trying to do. You know, they are protecting the masses instead of protecting individual people within the masses, which ultimately leads to a total control and dictatorship.
What about biodigital convergence, where they're trying to amalgamate people with technology and computers, Neuralink, putting chips into people, putting nanobots potentially in these injections? It seems like they're looking to control people now, not just through the TV programming, through the radio, through, the corrupted media, but also now digitally through technology. Have you heard about that? And what's your thoughts on how that's headed?
Well, we know, Jesse, we're heading into the end of days. I mean, we can clearly see it wherever aspect of your life is to be controlled by the government. I mean, look at us. Look at this. Wherever you go, right? Wherever you go, you're carrying government with you. Whatever you're doing, there is a record of what you're doing, what you're watching, what you're sending, your banking, everything, 24 hours, 7 days a week. So, this is an ultimate paradise for the wannabe dictator, in my opinion. We have entered an ultimate paradise for evil people to control and destroy humanity. So we must oppose this. If we're going to keep voting the same operatives, traitors, leading us to the same globalistic control, there is no hope. So we have to vote for the people that understand what's going on. I listened to Maxime Bernier a couple of days ago, and he gets it. He's not perfect. Don't get me wrong. I'm not elevating Donald Trump or Maxime Bernier or Grant Abraham or anybody else on the pedestal saying that's your God. No, they're people. People have flaws. However, in comparison to what they want to achieve and what the ruling parties are doing, is like walking completely towards different goals, towards different cities. So you've got the liberals, NDP, and so-called conservatives leading us into a total globalistic control and a destruction of our country, sovereign country. And you've got the other parties, the outsiders, that are leading us into a personal freedom. So if I was, let's say, I'm the prime minister, I would give Canadians property rights, just like Americans have. I would implement a constitution with a fundamentally guaranteed rights, not Section 1 subject to an interpretation of the crooked judge that works for the liberal government. I would implement incentives from our natural resources. I believe that Alberta and Albertans should share the resources that we have here. We should be receiving part of the resources because we are impacted by the resources here. But that's not happening. We are being raped and robbed, enslaved by the very people that claim to work for us. The insanity with giving billions of dollars to Quebec and Ontario. This must stop. This must stop. Albertans are hurting. The responsibility for the premier in Alberta are Albertans. That's how it's supposed to be. But of course, that's gone. This whole thing gone. Everything, it seems, just goes one direction, to the east. We are supporting the very people that are killing us. This equality craziness. And of course, by the time, again, I want to say something to Albertans. My friends, by the time you finish your vote, the election has been already decided. So it doesn't matter. In the end of the day, it doesn't matter how you vote, because Ontario and Quebec alone overpowers all of your votes. So it doesn't matter how Albertans, Saskatchewans, you know, British Columbia, and all the other provinces and territories vote. It doesn't matter. It changes nothing. We must stop that. It has to stop. But who is going to stop it? Those people are not stopping it. Do you see Pierre talking about this? Do you see Carney, that destroyed the Bank of England, tried to destroy Canada under the regime of son of the Castro Caligula, and then moved everything to New York and lived there? His family still lives there, and he cares for Canada right now? No, his job is one, to finish us off. That's his job, with the support of the conservative government and the NDP. That's their job, is to finish you off and to enslave you. The only hope that we have is God, bring God back to Canada, and vote for outsiders, people that are outside of the globalist circle of Nazis and communists. So that's the only hope. And I mean, you do whatever you want to do. I mean, whatever works for you. I'm pretty much sure that people are going to vote for conservatives, because they don't understand even what we are saying, Jesse. I don't think they are capable even to understand the seriousness of this situation. I think they have been brainwashed and controlled for so many years. It's somehow Stockholm syndrome that has developed in their brain, that they like their abusers. They are attached to their rapists and thieves and con artists, and they want them in power. Well, I'm not under the Stockholm syndrome. I evaluate the situation. I see what they're doing, not just what they're saying, but what they're doing. And I say they're bad actors, they're bad people. We have to vote for another party, because this party has fallen. Conservative Party is not conservative. It has fallen. Out, discarded. Liberals are crazy Nazis. Out, discarded. NDP are communist socialists. Out, discarded. So what's left? Oh, there is a People's Party of Canada. Okay, good. What are their policies? Oh, I like what they say, but I also like what they did when we needed them the most. Maxime Bernier was arrested with the rest of us. He marched with us. He stood with us. He spoke. He fought. He's still fighting. You've got Grant Abraham, the new party, United Party of Canada. Great platform. Good man. Great people. Okay. So we have alternatives. We're not left without options. We have other options, so we don't have to. Good people do not have to vote for wicked, evil monsters anymore. We have options. We have Christian Heritage Party. And if you think they're too Christian, vote for PPC. If you think that Maxime this way or that way failed you, vote for United Party of Canada. But you have options. Don't tell me that you have no options. Because if you are voting for traitors, you're part of the problem. And it will bite you in the end. It's just like the German people in 1933. They voted for the Nazi Party and they elected democratically Adolf Hitler as their chancellor. And look the history. Look what happened to the German people. Because you may think that the Nazis destroyed many millions of lives around the world. That's true. But in the end, it was over 2 million German women that were raped by the Russian soldiers during the liberation. They've lost millions upon millions of lives, children, men, husbands, brothers, grandpas, women. In the end of the day, this will bite you, my friends. It will bite you as well. You think you're escaping the liberals because you're voting for the corrupted conservatives. In the end, it's going to bite you as well. Vote outside of the circle of evil for your own sake.
What do you know about UNDRIP, the United Nations Declaration to take back all the land, farmers' land, and give it to the indigenous people? Apparently, this has been gaining momentum. Vancouver signed on to UNDRIP. Other, places are looking to implement this. And does you think that this leads up to the 15-minute cities?
Everything that we are observing right now it leads to a total control, a destabilization, a destruction, chaos. Illuminatis, they have this famous saying that out of chaos, our order will come. So everything, they are using natives right now. That's what I'm trying to say. They're just using them. They're using them to bring chaos. They're using Black Lives Matter to bring chaos. They're using Arabs, the Muslims, because they're the best if it comes to pillaging, raping, destroying, bringing chaos, right? So they're using those people. When they are done destroying the Western world, they're going to eliminate them as well. Because ultimately, just you have to understand that the wannabe pharaohs are not willing to share their power and their wealth with no one. No one. They are there for themselves and they're going to start to eliminate. I think if I was a betting man, I would say they're using the natives to finish them off in the end. I really truly believe that their intention is to finish them off and to take their land away. Not today, they're using them today, but in a long run. The same with the Black Lives Matter, the same with Antifa. They're useful idiots at this moment. And if it comes to Muslims, well, the Muslims hate everything and everyone. I mean, it looks like they are perfect to bring that evil and chaos and murder and pillaging and raping. So the globalists are going to they are using them. In what I'm trying to say is this is, Jesse, a controlled demolition of the West. That's what it is. They are destroying our way of life. Why? Because the nations that were built on Christianity are the best democracies or republics that ever existed. That's why they are the threat. That's why they need to go. That's why they are not sending immigrants to China or India or Africa. They're not sending, Palestinians to Arabic nations, which are half empty, and they have so much land they could take, 1,000 times more refugees. But they're sending them to the West countries. Why? Because this is the plan: to destroy, to dismantle, to bring controlled demolition of the West. And we are witnessing this. This is not an immigration. You got to remember, this is an invasion. We're being invaded. Look at Europe. Look at England. Look at France. Look at what is happening in Germany. It's chaos. The Europe is on fire. There's no salvaging this, Jesse. Europe is gone. It's done. It's going to end up in a war. Mark my words, there is no fixing this. They're going to end up with blood on the streets. And the same thing they want for America, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, USA. The same pattern, the same thing.
You mentioned that, you feel we're in end times. Could you maybe elaborate, what that means and what people should do to prepare?
Well, I can only tell you what God has been saying to me. He says famine is coming and it's going to be great, like during the end of 20s and 30s. The Great Depression is going to be worse than Great Depression. He told me to get ready, to get a land, a farm, to raise animals, to prepare financially, and also if it comes to your ability to raise food. Ultimately, the globalist idea of control is those who control the food production control the societies. And of course, communists did this and are still doing this. Nazis did it, and every other totalitarian regime has been doing this throughout the ages. So I would say to you, don't spend money on stupid things. Get your money out of the banking system. Do not keep your funds with the globalists. Look at what is happening to Canadian dollar, American dollar. In the past 4 years of the Biden administration, American dollar lost 45% of its purchasing power. So you have to start thinking strategically. because we are truly living in the last day of the last days. That means that everything is escalating, everything is going faster and faster. It's like a fast forward movie, and things are going to happen, and you need to protect yourself and your family. Um, I have seen what's coming. I've seen that our lineups are going to be 100 times bigger than we have right now because of the amount of hurting people. And the government will not be able to fix this problem because those people in power did this. They brought this disaster on Canadian people. And that's why I don't understand why you keep voting for those people over and over again. But that's just me. Um, so don't waste your money. Tough times are coming. I see banking collapsing. I see a lot of people losing their properties and their homes because they will not be able to pay for just for their you know utility bills, and taxes are insane. Um, that's what I'm doing. I'm not wasting my resources. I'm trying to educate people on what's coming. Community. Also, he said to me, your greatest commodity is community, Jesse. It's people that you know, the friendships, the people that you can work, collaborate with, people that understand what's really going on. Keep those people close, form communities, get some farmers outside, start buying outside of the system. Don't support the globalist entities, start supporting your local farmers, your local friends. Be a community, be a family, support one another. Don't throw grenades at each other, even if you disagree on certain things, because tough times are coming. And this is not the end, this is just the beginning of hardship. We are at this moment, we are in the middle of a tornado that is about to hit this land, and sometimes you may feel that you're in the eye of the tornado, but eventually you're going to see what is going to happen in the future. So we are heading for a rough ride. That's what I'm trying to say. A rough ride. And only those that are close to God and only those that are close with friends, family, community will be able to navigate in those rough waters. So bless each other, be a blessing to each other, stay close, don't fight with the people that don't want to hurt you. They just believe a little bit differently than you, or they see it a little bit differently. I think this is the key, Jesse, of surviving what's coming.
I just needed to address this comment. So Pila from our Facebook says, I was talking to Ed Bugos, who is Jeff Berwick's partner. He said the market will crash in the next year or so. I clean his office. So just be careful. There's a lot of impersonators. There's a lot of people. Someone that watches the Missing Link live got scammed by a Jeff Berwick impersonator. I guess you say you clean his office, but just be careful. People giving you financial advice. There's lots of impersonators. There's lots of scammers out there. So, be, on guard that this potentially may happen. And then we have Lorna from our Rumble says, where are you putting your money on the financial market, Artur?
Well, I am running a charity organization, so we are investing in souls. We're feeding thousands of people on the streets of Calgary. But I would encourage you to watch some of my friends from US like Bo Polney. So go and Google him up, Bo, B-O, Polney, Polny, and he is giving advices of what to do if you have some extra funds. Me and my wife, our church, we are focusing on souls, feeding so many people and helping as many as we can, and that's what we intend to do. And by the way, I'm still in court. I'm still fighting. I'm fighting this crazy injunction prohibiting us from protesting. I had to hire a new set of lawyers. I'm still suing the government of what they've done to me, keeping me in psych ward, metal cages, all those things. So if you want to support us, because this is how we survive. We survive by talking to people and asking, will you like what we do? You like what I say? please support the mission. We are a charity organization that focuses on saving lives on a regular basis. So go to streetchurch.ca, streetchurch.ca. You can see what we do. Of course, Facebook, you can see the pictures. On a regular basis, I'm posting what we give to the people, what we're feeding them with, what we're doing. And if God puts that on your heart, we need support, we need help, because especially now when the lawfare has been unleashed on us, the process is punishment, and they are punishing us left and right with those unbelievable amounts of legal fees. So if you want to help, please do streetchurch.ca. And if you are curious or interested to know more of the story, the background, the prison, the players, the politicians, the fixers, the crown prosecutors, judges, go to Amazon.com. If you're outside of Canada, Amazon.com, and you can get your copy. Lions Do Not Bow. In Canada, Amazons.ca, and you can get your copy here, or directly to Pathway Books services. You can see it right there, that my publisher will be able to send you a copy and share it with others. There's a lot of information in the book, a lot of stuff, and your eyes will be open. When I was still in the business, like those 150 years ago, we had a saying, Jesse, information is more powerful than money. Why? Because if you have the right information, making money is easy if you know where to invest. That's why I'm risking friends, I'm risking supporters by telling you the truth, because I want Canadians to prosper, to succeed. I love this land, and I have been hammered by exposing the so conservative party, Jesse. I have been hammered brutally by so many people attacking me, calling me names, and I just want you to understand with whom you are dealing with. How bad are those people? How awful they are, and they're conning you. That's all. You don't have to believe me, but I'm not doing this to hurt you. I'm doing this to warn you, to bless you. And it's up to you. You can take the warning, or you can keep doing what you have been doing for the past 30, 40 years. But I think by now you should know that this is not serving you in the best way. So perhaps it's a good time, it's a good moment to stop doing the same revolving door of insanity.
Now, I guess the last thing that I wanted to, discuss is we have today is Good Friday. We have Easter Sunday. Tell us about what that means to you, and then maybe we can end off with the prayer.
Well, it's the holiest time of the year. It's the crucifixion and resurrection of our Jesus Christ. You see, without the crucifixion, there will be no resurrection. Without the resurrection, you would not have hope of eternal life. We have become so bad as human beings that we walked away from God in this constant pursuit of sin, and we could not get ourselves out of the pickle. Only God could do it, and He did it by sending His Son, Jesus Christ. He came, He lived, He showed us what is good, what is evil. He dwelt among us, He raised the dead, He fed the poor, He preached the truth, He gave people hope, and they hated Him for it. Just like so many people hate me, Jesse, for telling them the truth. This is the truth. This is what I experienced. Take it or leave it, but that's the truth. But people, instead of, okay, I'll evaluate this, I'll look into it, they hate me just because I say things that they don't like. And that's exactly what happened with Jesus. They hated Him because He was exposing corruption. He was exposing the bad players, the con artists. And for that, they murdered Him in a most awful, evil way, the most painful way on the cross. And He rose from the grave just like He said He would. And He's sitting on the right hand of God Almighty, coming to judge the living and the dead. That's why we have hope. That's why in the end of the day, Jesse, I can have peace knowing that even if we will not see justice on this side of eternity, one day we will see justice, because our God is judge of judges. And even those crooked judges and politicians will not escape his judgment. Everyone will receive what's due to them. Everyone will receive what they have worked for very hard. So he rose from the grave, and he says that we can all have part of that resurrection. So I want to bless you with this. It's a beautiful time to remember that there is hope. And in the end of the day, my friends, remember there is hope. There is hope. There's always hope. God is not moved or shaken by the earthly politics. He still sits on the throne, and he's coming back to judge the living. And that. So, Father God, I bless Jesse. I thank you for his willingness to listen to the story. I thank you for what he is doing, exposing evil and standing true to his convictions. Kudos to him. We need more Jessies on this side of eternity, brave people that are willing to say sometimes things that others don't want to hear. And I pray for those that are watching this, touch their hearts, their souls, and their spirits. Be with them. Show them that you're a real God. Show them that you're a loving God, compassionate, merciful God. Show them that you love Canada and you don't want Canada to go under. But we need to change our ways. We need to come back to the standards, commandments of the living God. And I bless the people with eyes to see and the ears to hear what you want to tell them in the name of Jesus. And I thank you, God, that no matter what is going to happen during this during this election, we have you on our side. And we believe and we trust that you're going to take care of us and our families. And I bless everyone that listens to this with the same thing. In the end of the day, God is bigger than all the villains combined together. God is bigger than all the crooked parties combined together. God is bigger than corrupted propaganda, mainstream media in Canada. God is bigger than the Schwabs and the Soros of today. God is bigger than the crooked judges and crooked crown prosecutors like Stephen Johnston. He is bigger, greater. And with him, we have hope. So I bless you with that. And remember, lions do not bow before the hyenas. Be blessed.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. May the source be with you and protection around you and your family during this pivotal time in history. Next week on the Missing Link Live, we're having the weekend off plus holiday Monday. Tuesday, we've got Sherry Strong. Wednesday, we've got Dell Beyond the Imaginary Curve. Thursday, we had George Wiseman, but he says he needs to cancel. And then Friday, we've got Brian Sang. And then Saturday we got Dwayne Hayes, Diego Garcia, a forensic historian. So that's next week. Thanks again. Knowledge is power. The more knowledge we all have collectively, the less power they have over us. So let's all face infinity without flinching for one love, one heart, one life. Namaste, everyone. And if they ever ask you to put on a breathing inhibitor again, Pastor Artur, you know what to tell them? No mask. Okay. If they ask you to put on a mask, a breathing inhibitor, you tell them no mask, eh?
Yeah, I told them I'm not your dog. Even if you put the muzzle on my dog, he will bite you. So you can have triple.
Awesome. Well, have a wonderful Easter weekend. And we'll, sending love to you and your family. Thanks for being the man you are. A lot of people see what all happened. They said, oh, there was cameras and this, he must have been part of the show, but it was just, they were trying to use him as an example. That's why they had it up, because they wanted him to be the example. So if they could do this to a pastor, what could they do to you? And that's backfired because he didn't bow down to them, because lions do not bow down. If you're interested in hearing more about him, his story, what's going on, please purchase his book, share it out. We have the links we've put, and scrolling at the bottom, we've put throughout the interview. And we'll see you all next time we see you back here on the Missing Link. So God bless you all. Love you. And, we'll see you again.
God bless you.